German Shepherds. So they're all black. And so there we go. So, yeah, my stipulation was I didn't need another female. I got enough scars from the 2 females having their decision battles. Don't need no more.
There was something that mentioned that was too darn.
I wasn't about to because I would lose. Y'all have the hard copy. What? Yeah, right.
They elected me and the local government code. They did not elect me. Yes, but Mayor Kelly did not ever. Mayor Gardner did not ever. Well, I needed to tell
Well, there was a possibility that they would have existing infrastructure that needs help, and our roofing is on us.
Right, then yeah.
So those are the water system upgrades.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that was
I
tied
guess,
into it.
well, it's east side, that's what
Well,
was,
it says here's the existing utility. That's what I'm wondering.
yeah. Well, anything we do is going to be under that
Oh,
in
yeah.
mind.
Yeah. Like it should be. I was, okay.
they will not let me guide. That's how I have a council, the administrator,
I'm not on this thing.
that was where it started. You know, I've been trying, I felt that they were way out of
Yeah, these are way for a really long time. Now there's
Yeah.
Trying to keep warm.
I'm gonna take care of that for you. Good to see you. Merry Christmas to you.
Glad you realized you were supposed to be here.
Good. Good.
Because Mr. Byers called me and he's ill, so
He's what now?
he's sick.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the flu's going around, something fierce.
He called me and said,
My daughter had it the other day, but it's quick to recover, I think. They got something new out?
I don't know, I said, I've been ill with this hip.
Yeah, Mountain Cedar's heavy today, so.
Really?
Yeah.
He said,
Glad I stayed in the office today.
He's not feeling well.
So,
You get all your hunters taken care of?
No, ma'am. No, I had a doctor's appointment at 3 o'clock in Hondo, and my hunters were running late, so we're gonna have to reconvene in the morning. Yeah, they were trying to get here from Midland, and the weather wasn't cooperating, I don't think.
Right?
But yeah, it's busy. Had a bunch of them last week.
What's that?
This maroon truck's got a city sticker on the side.
It's a used vehicle.
Who's driving it? Oh, the guy that runs the tractor and stuff. He come out and said, Stagecoach Hills in it. One day, and I was from the gas at the next station or at the warehouse, and he was buying lotto tickets. One day, it was during the week, yeah. Yeah, during the day. And I said, I can't believe I ain't never seen this. I asked somebody one time before, and I never. Okay. I think I knew that guy. Yeah. Huh. How are you going to do this? You had some question.
There you go.
You sound like you got the crud.
Yeah, I got
From Florida?
I guess.
They got frogs over there?
I guess so.
Or too much alligator?
I figure I'll just maybe I think I'm gonna go west this time.
Really?
I'm gonna go there.
Go to that dry weather?
Yeah, I think around 20.
Really? Just go mess around or got some, it's got a destination?
Arizona, and we got some friends that are in Tucson.
Yeah?
I got a brother in Mesa.
Oh, really?
They go there for Christmas.
Nothing keeping you here, huh? No. Sad to hear. I haven't seen him around in a while, but I haven't been in church in a while either. Oh, really? I've been abusing my usher duties in church.
You'll have to pay a price.
I know.
They'll make us sweep the carpet or something.
Drove all the way to Houston to watch grandkids play flag football Friday and Saturday. Come back Sunday. No. No. I think they ended up 8th out of 40 teams though, so they did pretty well. Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Top 10.
Yeah, lots of competition over there. Oh my God, yes.
Well, it's funny when you go away from your home area and all of a sudden you get called a whole bunch of those like, wow, this is my home. I mean, you know how they play.
There was one kid on the other team that beat us. It was single elimination, so we won in time. And I told my grandson, I said, you need to go get that guy's name. And if you can get his autograph, you need to get it too, because you're probably going to see him on TV one day. Oh my God. I don't know what the details are. They don't living in the church. We got all but one kid on the team's 10. The rest are 9. 9 and 10 U. It's college. But these kids look like this.
Professionals.
11, 12,
Grow up.
big.
Hopefully it's a lot of work. They're having to go to Castroville.
Oh, they claim they check birth certificates and everybody. You know, in this day and age, I guess you can make up anything.
Closest.
Yeah.
California, so much more. Between, you know, fire.
I was listening to WEI this morning because I was waiting on these guys to call me, so I had time to where this company's from. This is fish thing. It's getting sour for the Democratic side.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's what it seems to be.
Yeah. Inundating. They even showed pictures of the cities that they said cannot get now.
So everybody ready for Christmas? I'm not. I wait till the last minute. Gift cards.
I mean, they're all right. That's good cards, and they like it.
I like gift cards, especially if they're a sporting goods outfit or some place they can buy hunting and fishing gear. Yeah, I went to the Academy the other day, and for some reason I can't think that I got these gift cards in my wallet, you know, and I thought about it, and I started pulling it out. I got half a dozen of them. I got money to burn, and Christmas is coming again.
I know, we did the same thing. I walked out there with that house, and they got money in the car, because we got all kinds, because he gets into the car. And we forgot about it.
Yeah.
Grass for their
You know, I said, I'll phone you.
and for a 3-bedroom,
That's pretty easy. You go check it out.
1,500 square feet. And it's like, I know they're, yeah, I know. And then for just renewal, there doesn't little tags on their vehicles, it's $1,100. Just run
Howdy. Way over there.
Well, we're missing our cohort here.
Yeah, y'all ought to move over a chair.
We're good. We're good.
Ain't gonna happen.
Sir?
Lunch you.
Well, but I'd be taking the mayor's seat. I don't want to be
I
that.
don't want to even get there yet. I use Jesse for insulation half the time. So they use Jesse for insulation half the time.
Oh, no. Good afternoon, Mayor.
Mayor, I put the,
1 minute.
who's doing the application on your book?
Sorry? Yes, I just met her.
Sandy.
Mhm.
Get so quiet in here when we're fixing to start. You could hear a pin drop.
It's already recorded. It's been recorded. You're right.
It's a lot.
All right, I believe it's at the 6. I don't really see. Is it?
Yes,
Six
ma'am, and,
bells.
Mr. Byers called, and he's ill tonight. He's not
All right.
here.
All right. Let the record show this meeting has been called to order at 6 o'clock. Everyone is present except Councilman Byers. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Please remain standing for the invocation from...
Hi, Tina Santee, First Baptist Castroville. Thank you for having me. You would please bow with me. Father God, thank you so much for the blessings you give us. May we go into this Christmas season, Father, knowing that it is your Son that we honor, Father. Allow the things that are spoken here at this meeting, Father God, be honoring to you. Let them be in truth and for the betterment of each person that is here in Castroville. Allow us to honor your will and your name, Father, in this town. Allow each and every person that speak truth with honesty and with merit, Father God. Thank you so much for the honor of being a part of this beautiful country of ours. And we ask all this in your mighty Son's name, our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. All right, we have citizen comments. If anyone would like to comment, please come to the front, state your name and your address. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name's Roberto Lozano, and I live here on 2211 Geneva Street, and I'm just here to comment about the construction that's going on in that place. I've been trying to work real closely with the city to have that project complete. I know out of the 22 items that were emailed to me, 17 of them have been completed, and we got a little bit more schedule on the way, and I'm just asking for the city for a little bit more time and a little bit more patience, and I'll be able to complete those projects and get out of everybody's hair. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Arnie DeLacy, 109 River Bluff. I'm here more for a community service announcement, I guess I could say. Castroville Area Economic Development Council. Castroville Area Economic Development Council has created these calendars to help benefit the scholarships we give to Medina Valley High School students. They're all photographs of Castroville during the 175th birthday of the town. And if you're interested in doing it, I'd love to sell them to you. And they are $25 a piece, special edition. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else? We're good? All right, thank you. All right, we're going to the consent agenda. We have minutes from November 4th, November 19th, from October 7th, airport, and November 4th, airport. Do you have a motion or discussion?
I move we accept them as written.
We have a motion to accept them as written,
Second.
and Councilman Carey seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Consent agenda is good. The next one is consideration and appropriate action on applications submitted for open positions on city boards and commissions. And this is Deborah Howe, the city secretary.
Yes, tonight y'all have applications. The Landmark Commission, Historic Landmark Commission, their memberships and terms in October. They're the only board that does that. And so we have we have 3 members of that board that would like to look at being reappointed to their positions. We also have a position open on the Library Advisory Board, and we have an application for that. I know they've had some issues with quorums, which is unusual for this board, but there were some members that had to drop out. And so we do have one application for that tonight. And I'm not sure if they shot was able to be here tonight. I did email her, but I believe she works at the school, if I'm not mistaken, so. But she was recommended by Ms. Dora Ramirez that used to be on the board. And I believe you, I think she came to some of the meetings, correct?
If I might comment, she's been coming to the Library Advisory Board meetings for several months. She's very interested in being on the board, and I strongly recommend that we support her.
And I believe Mr. Dean is here tonight from the board of the Historic Landmark Commission. I don't see Ms. Garrett, but y'all know her too. And Darren may not be here tonight either, but y'all also know him.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the only ones I have tonight.
All right, so appropriate action?
I'll make a motion, we, let me see what my motion's gonna be here. Reappoint Bob Dean, Priscilla Garrett, and Darren Schroeder to the Historic Landmark Commission Board, and also appoint Lacey Schott to the Library Advisory Board.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank y'all.
Passes. Now we have consider and take appropriate action on approval of respect task order number 1. And this is Mr. Vidalis, who approved it, and the money, and Mr. Spillman from Respect.
Mr. Stone, you mind doing that?
Good evening, Mayor, council members, Mr. Vidalis. Yes, I'm just here to give a quick briefing on the work we've performed to date on the project Task Order 1. We took the information from the developer TerraCore related to the Alsatian Oaks development and performed some analysis of what water and wastewater utility improvements would need to be constructed in order to meet the demands for that development, and prepared a report issued to the city back several weeks ago. We've done all this in keeping with, trying to keep up with the schedule with the city without having the task order actually authorized, so that's why we're here tonight, to present this to the city council and seek approval for that. So my understanding is, I got an email late today that the developer has already reviewed that and provided comments back to them, to the city, requesting some additional information and clarifications on that. So with that, I'll have you welcome any kind of questions you may have related to that.
Councilman Dyer, do you have any questions about task order, the first one, phase 1?
Are you anticipating that you're going to be able to meet the schedule for the first phase, the 6-month schedule?
Well, that's what the report was, in keeping with that we have already issued those recommendations ahead of that 6-month deadline. So we have prepared the recommendations in keeping with the development agreement that city has with TerraCore to satisfy that requirement already.
That's all I have.
Councilman?
No questions.
Councilman Carey?
No, thank you.
Councilman Martinez?
No.
Woman, sorry. All right, so now we have appropriate action, council.
I move we approve the respect task order number 1 as written.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spillman.
Now we have consider and take appropriate action on approval of base hangar and terminal office lease agreements. This will be Mr. Kilpatrick, who is our airport manager. He's full-time now, by the way.
Good evening, council. How are you?
Good.
Very good. How are you?
Doing good. Hey, I just wanted to touch base with you and let you know that we've currently got 4 different lease templates in circulation at this time. Our current lease template is in effect until 30 September of this year, of this next fiscal year. So I'm looking at having that updated as we do more leases and we update those leases. Each one that I've reviewed, none of the templates are the same across the board. I have several that date back to 2010 with an auto renewal, Some auto-renew for 4 years, some auto-renew for 1 year. I've got one that's got a 6-month renewal and one that's got a 9-month renewal. So there's really no piece to keep us in line with future growth. Some of the notable things, I've had TxDOT Aviation review, Ms. Cynthia from the city attorney review, and myself, as well as reading through the grant assurances. Ordinance 150 talks about we'll charge price per square foot. The current lease doesn't meet those standards. The new lease will. When comparing commercial rates to the lease, the posted prices in the comprehensive fee schedule have not met the increase in prices and given the number to the tenants currently. So as we've gone up on an increase in price, the tenants haven't received anything until it's passed on the comprehensive fee schedule for the year. There's been no provisions for a CPI increase and no provisions entered into the agreement to let tenants know that there will be a CPI increase. This is going to bring us in compliance with the Grant Assurance 24. The circumstances existing then at the particular airport, taking into account such factors as the volume of traffic and the economy of collection. This will allow us to review how our airport is working for the economy and set the rates appropriately. It also helps us with Grant Assurance 22, which talks about public use for reasonable terms and without unjust discrimination to all types, kinds, and classes of aeronautical activities. This agreement will bring us all in line with that. I've made this template for hangars and commercials. The commercial will have to be adjusted as we bring to you work negotiations back and forth with the city attorneys and with TxDOT Aviation. And then there will be one for the terminal buildings. The folks that rent the terminal buildings, the terminal offices, they have no airplanes. They don't have any substantial part that deals with where they can store equipment, how hazardous material is taken care of. It tailors this lease down to just them and then a template for everything else on the airport. And that's what I'd like to go to. I'm open to questions.
Councilwoman Martinez.
No, don't have any questions.
Councilman Carey.
The auto-renewing leases,
Yes, sir.
are those updatable, or are they under contract renewed as is? Can we bring those up to date?
We can. When
Okay.
my understanding and talking with Ms. Cynthia is this current lease is good until the fiscal year, October. As we go into this one, then everybody's lease
Good.
will come
Good.
into terms.
That's
And
what I
also-
wanted to hear.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Leroy, are you on board with all of this too?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all I have.
I've got several questions.
All right.
I think this is a monumental task. You got a lot of things here. And I, for one, cannot read the new one and then go back and read the old one and figure out what you changed. I really would like to see a red line and strikeout where you compare the old one to the new one so we can see anything that the city is currently entitled to that's being taken away and anything that's being added. It's just not possible, looking at these drafts, to do that. And I don't know how else to do it other than do a comparison in Microsoft Word and do a red line and strikeout and give us some time, because you have until September. This is a very important thing, and I support what you're doing. Don't mistake what I'm saying. I agree with you that this sounds like it's going to be an improvement, but there's no assurance here from what I've seen that we're protecting the rights we have now until we can see a comparison.
Okay.
The second thing that
Can I comment on that before you go too much further?
Sure.
Do you want a red line on every draft that's currently in circulation?
Only on I thought I heard you say you're going to go to a standard template for the two types.
This will be the standard template.
So I'd like to see a comparison between the old one and the new one so we can get an idea of what changed.
That's what I'm asking. You want the standard from the old 4 that are currently in circulation along with the 4 different commercial leases in circulation?
Well, however you want to do it, so we have a snowball chance of understanding what's changing.
Councilman, I think what he's saying is this, is that you had standard leases, but there were deviations And so you don't have a standard lease right now.
Okay.
Because the standard lease was, was approved, and then people would negotiate for deviations from the standard lease. So
Okay.
the question is, do you want the original standard lease, the changes between the original standard lease and the proposed standard lease, or do you want all the different leases that are out there?
Well, I guess from what you're saying, the logical thing would be for you to tell us, based on your analysis, what are we giving up, if anything? What are we getting that we didn't have before?
I do that right now.
Well, I don't want to do it in this meeting.
Okay.
I'd like to do it where we have time to go through them.
The reason for the update is we have several new contracts coming into play, and the old template, the current lease template, does not protect the city from a lawsuit.
Do you have a deadline right now that you have to meet? Did you give us some idea what that is?
We're going to have 4 new leases coming up 1 January.
Okay.
Ready to renew. And that was the reason to put this, because we don't meet again until January 14th. So it's 6 weeks of deliberation. That's why I've worked with Ms. Cynthia, I've worked with TxDOT, and I've gone through all the pieces to make sure that the city is covered on our side.
The one thing that bothers me the most is you have a limit of a maximum of 3% increase.
Yes, sir.
You have no idea what the CPI is going to be next year, neither do I. And if we put that in there and we have a catastrophic economy situation and the CPI shoots up, way up, we're going to be stuck holding the bag. I don't think we should be capping.
This is on TxDOT's recommendation as to take the CPI out because it does not come in compliance with Grant Assurance 24 and Regulation 17 of the FAA, where it says each airport will analyze their own economy and their own economic growth and set their rates appropriately.
Well, then, when we talked about this at the last meeting, we said we were going to give you an opportunity to go off and look at ways to improve it.
Yes, sir.
I'm not in favor of just a unilateral number. There are ways we can use the CPI. We try to get it to the local regional CPI, which we've never done. We've always used the national CPI. Maybe we can find ways to protect the city, but I don't think you're protecting the city if you put an arbitrary 3% increase. I mean, that's not protection. That's an exposure.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm going off of, TxDOT's recommendation to keep in line with the grant assurances that say you will monitor your own economic growth. We, Castroville, don't have an area comparable within 50 nautical miles of our airport for our economy.
Don't we have the southwest region of Texas, the CPI for that region?
TxDOT doesn't make an aviation CPI for that region. Now, they got a CPI for San Antonio. We don't grow at the same rate as San Antonio. But it talks about in the FAA regulations how we will have a conversation with council and the members who set the rates on what our economic needs are. And then we can set the rate accordingly. So that way, when somebody puts a Part 13 or a Part 16 injunction on us and says, you're unfairly charging me, we can say, hey, a discussion's been brought up. This is where we pulled our number from, not an arbitrary national CPI growth that Castroville hasn't met. So it protects us in the fact that it puts what TxDOT said, it puts the onus back on council and says, hey, let's have an honest discussion about where we see Castroville Airport going. Let's put an honest discussion on how we're going to increase our growth at our airport. That's where this is coming from. Now, and again, TxDOT will be here in the morning to have a discussion with us if, I can bring this up with them if you want to go forward. Like I said, I wrote this in conjunction with protecting the city.
Yeah, but I don't agree with you that you're protecting the city.
Oh, that's fine.
I think you're exposing the city.
Okay.
That's my only point. I'd like to find an alternative way that you're satisfied with and TxDOT may be satisfied with, that we might be able to compromise on a better way.
Okay.
I'm not hard over on any particular way. I just do not want to be in a situation where we have a cap because we don't know what the economy is going to do. And as far as your deadline, if if you're going to have to renew things before the next meeting, we're in kind of a bad situation. I mean,
We'll just continue to use the same template we got, and we'll have to amend it.
maybe we'll have to make it for a shorter period and try to renew everything on 30 September.
If I may, doesn't the existing agreements deal month-to-month?
After the initial term has been met. Yeah, so it's a tenancy at will, and a lot of folks are up 1 October or 30 September. Up.
Has that always been that way as far as you know, that after the first 12 months, that they automatically revert to month?
No, sir, that's why I said you have 4 different leases. Some have 4-year automatic renewals. It says that your term is from January 1 to January 1 with the option of a 4-year automatic renewal on the backside.
But on the template that you're considering adopting, does it specify something other than month to month?
Yes, sir. So if you read on page 1, number 2, it says the lease will commence on blank day to blank year for the year of 1 term. Thereafter, the lease will become tenancy at will in pursuant to section 19. And then if you go straight to section 19, basically, to summarize it, says it's tenancy at will until we come to a new agreement. And then it gets signed again and starts over. So it gives the city the ability to deliberate more on what the rates are going to be. If we don't meet something by 1 October, the city can deliberate on rates. The tenant stays month to month. We inform them that the rate's going to go up, and then the new lease gets put into effect.
And if I may, the purpose for having it run with your budget year is that, one, you're constitutionally bound to not expenditure past your budget year, and 2, just from a strategic point of view, you would want to know each budget year what you're going to do as far as leasing.
That's all I have.
Any more discussion? Any action?
Proceed.
Deborah, what's the action?
If they decide not to take any, I mean, that would basically, I mean, if you're wanting to wait.
Is that all right with you, Mr. Vidal?
Sure, we can certainly come back in January with your request, with your recommendation.
I'd like to look at it. I'd like to look at the changes.
So we're tabling it? That's the action?
Bring it back. It's no action.
No action. Okay.
Thank you, David.
All right, next one. All right, next one is updates from the mayor. I'm going to move current job openings down because I don't have an organizational chart. And without an organizational chart, it's kind of difficult to explain the job openings. So I'd like to do the Alsatian Oaks Development Master Plan, which should be a slide up here for us.
It may be 2 slides, unfortunately.
You guys can't see it, I asked for copies, here's one.
We did.
I can give them to you if you like them later.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to start back up.
I did make copies of the scenarios that we had initially. There's several of them, and I honestly thought this was what phase 1 would be based on, but it wasn't. Nothing?
Well, it was on. Anything on? Well, it's not.
Oh.
Either one of those back to work. It doesn't matter if it doesn't come on.
Yeah, no, so.
It's on.
It's on.
Yes, it's this control. It's fine. No, no, that's not. It's off.
Another plane couldn't see, wait. See, I just needed a hover and that was it.
Are we good?
I get
Because it's
that.
not coming up. It's showing,
I'll bore you with my talk.
it's showing my screen is not there.
We gotta fix it.
I can see it, y'all can't see it.
So you're not getting a screen echo, basically.
Let's do it again the same way as before. Yeah, but it's the, it's this deal.
I know.
Oh. So you're getting, it's a remote screen, not a echo.
It's because.
Ta-da.
There you go.
This is no work. I don't know about the, well, it's not gonna come up the right way, unfortunately. Well, it's on, and it's 2 slides in one. However you send it to me.
So we're good?
Yeah, that's the way we have them.
Okay, all right. You guys can't see, we need to get that back there maybe or somewhere else, but, I was wondering why it's there. I'd like to give you some history as I see it, because this started when I was on council, District 1. And it was during Mayor Kelly's administration. He had council pass a resolution, I was against it, by the way, that gave him sole power for negotiations with Highway 90 partners. So Mayor Kelly and worked and negotiated, and I was a little concerned that it was going to do itself. But then a very smart and knowledgeable gentleman who is our bond counsel joined him and helped with the development agreement. He's our bond advisor. He's here. Mr. Denver is the gentleman. So Mayor Kelly, Mr. Binford were working on the development agreement, and they both updated council, and we discussed parkland dedication. I remember particularly, I asked that the houses be different, not that we had the same sort of houses in rows, and they graciously added that. Make sure of the border requirement, which thank goodness we did then, because legislation has stopped that. So we continue to need development agreements to annex, so we can help and control. So I became mayor, and Councilman Dyer, I had no idea, I was left with nothing. There was no continuity, no records. The only records I could find were in boxes, and those are the ones I tried to piece things together with, as well as minutes and the website. So when I became mayor, there was nothing with Alsatian Oaks at all. So Councilman Dyer had been appointed by Mayor Kelly to negotiate. And Councilman Dyer called me, I don't remember if it was the second week that I walked into an empty office or not, and said that you need to call Mr. Collins, which I did. So I called Mr. Collins, I met him, and he told me he was very interested in getting this agreement going. And I said, well, I'm anti-development, and I've always been, but if we can do something to ensure that the development will enhance our city and our county, I'm all for it. Because as you well know, we cannot regulate anything that is in our ETJ, CNN, we have to provide services. And we can't regulate anything. ETJs, you've seen examples of what happens if we cannot do development agreements and work with developers for requirements, because they do not by any means have to use the city, the development agreements. And Ms. Soto, who is our development person, can talk to you about that if you're interested in more. So I was gung-ho on this. I needed something. It was a huge development. I knew it would impact the city, and I did not want to repeat a Walmart mess, because I think it was because people weren't informed. They didn't know what was happening. All of a sudden, we found out the tax was 1/3. I don't remember what it is. You have to live with it, suck it up. But I was determined that that was not going to happen with this new development agreement. Mr. Binford and his colleagues helped me organize all of the venues to talk to citizens, for citizens to ask questions, because there were a lot. Questions like, who did this? Why are you doing it? It's a bad idea. Why didn't you do this instead? I don't trust them, blah, blah, blah. A lot of the questions hadn't been answered, but I trusted them. I trusted Mr. Binford and his group. So I worked towards getting it done, and there were a lot of items. We needed to get things flushed out, but I relied on Mr. Binford, and then after that, we had Respect, who came in as a separate engineering firm to work out the phases and what we would need for the infrastructure, because I was shooting for upsizing, offsizing, because that would help us an incredible amount of money and an incredible amount of connections that we don't have now that we could have. So what happened was, originally, we got 3 scenarios, and they were all on grass, and we were all given these scenarios about the build out, how we could work on the east side of the city, because that was the city that was the portion of the city which we actually had, I would say 98% assurance that we would have development. And Niles Maxwell is one who is the developer right now, who doesn't have fire pressure, and he needs water column. So this looping on that side was designed or started to help those developments in that area. Because fire pressure is an issue for hospitals, larger things, and we don't have it now. And looping has always been the promise on the books, on our CIPs, for all our budgets. You can go back and look. It has always been there, so we could get fire pressure and the water to the new development on that side. So what they did is they looked at all the wells in the area to see which wells could provide the LUE, living unit equivalents, for the size of the development, which I think is 950 homes eventually. They'll start with commercial development. LUE means how many people need water in that house. And what is it, Brianna? 4 point, I don't remember. There's a number, an average family, play or
yeah, it's a little over 4.
So we need to supply water for 4 point something people in 950 homes. So that was my goal right there. Okay, we're going to supply water for all those people, so we're going to go ahead and get this on that side too, so we can provide for development that's coming up, that we have been planning the looping for. Looping has been on the books, as I have said, in every budget to help develop and deliver water to the east side. Originally, the east side lift station was supposed to be a wastewater treatment plant, but it didn't work out because of disagreements on the discharge. So it ended up at a lift station. We needed something there, and we still need something on that side. We've always known that. So I saw this as also as a resolution, a solution to that issue on that side, the east side. This is all history in the past, but we all know it, those of us who have been around here for a long time. So I saw that as our salvation, this development agreement, these scenarios, and I honestly thought that the scenario that had been chosen was the one on the airport well, because it seemed to be the one that was able to pump the most. And we would not have to inspect to make sure that the pump could hold or produce the capacity needed, and we would not need to fear that the valley well, which serves the people of Victory Lane, I believe, would be out of water while we were inspecting or upgrading. And suddenly I found phase one that Mr. Vidalis recommended be passed, because he said we had 800, how much did you say we had?
It's about 840.
Sorry?
About 840, 845.
845,000?
Yes.
That was left over from another capital improvement, which could be used, but only for water, nothing else. How much of that is design, and how much can we actually use for building?
46 is design, about 820 for
Sorry?
actual expenditure. 446,000 for design, about 820,000 for actual capital improvement.
So the design portion is going to be paid out of that. The rest is capital improvements. So capital improvements hit me immediately. What are capital improvements? The city has had capital improvements on the books, on the budget for years, and they've never been done. We have River Bluff that started, I believe, in 2014 as capital improvement along with Country Village. Another capital improvement was Cross Hill, which was done. Another capital improvement were the streets, reconstruction, etc. Another one was drainage. And you would know as well as I, they weren't all done. So I thought, fantastic, we'll fit those capital improvements in with the capital improvements required for this development agreement. So that's the initial part, and that's where I was on this. So we had the series of events involving citizens to get input, because to me that's very important. You guys are being governed, so you're the ones who need to tell us how to govern. September 24th, 2019, Council approved the agreement between the City and Highway 90 Castroville Partners, and this initiated phase one of the contract. The City was to work on submitting the design of the utilities infrastructure, and staff, with respect, was to discuss and draft scenarios they had so far on the best possible alignment and sizes for the water and sewer infrastructure. Respect has met with city staff and will continue to work with city staff to present council updates for the deliverable. So, the deliverable was phase one. The report I got was a shock, because it said the airport scenario was not included because City Hall, someone at City Hall, I guess the staff, said that the airport well was under contract. It's leased, supposedly. And I'm not sure if we're working that out right now with David and Tech Scott and everyone else to see what it really means. But any lease has a, I can't remember the legal word, right to take it back or something if it's necessary. And I did look at the lease and it's there. So, I have not been involved in anything. My visions that I had have been worked out by someone from the city staff. So now we have a phase one that seems to me will do little to help us with any of the infrastructure. But again, we would have to talk to Mr. Vidalis, because he is the person in charge. For the next one, September 14th, that's when we do Then, so my idea was, we have an old master plan. The thoroughfare plan has nothing to do with current situations. Land use plan has nothing to do with our current situation. So I saw, and according to government code, which I brought, a development agreement can be the groundwork for a master plan. So that was my idea. And I sent this out to Mr. Vidalis, November 6th, 2019. And what I had asked, and I sent it out to everyone else, the development agreement to be our new comprehensive plan, blah, blah, blah. The relationship between the comprehensive plan and development regulation may provide standards for determining the consistency between the plan and development agreements or regulations that we're expecting to have very soon. And again, the reason is so we can negotiate to annex, so we can regulate. And I get in trouble for regulate, that's not what I mean, but we can sort of control what is developed. Using this development agreement, land use assumptions, including description of service area within the corporate boundaries, ETJ and CCN. CCN, certificate of necessity, convenience and necessity, which means the city is surrounded by its CCN that we have to supply water and sewer. Please correct me, Mr. Vidalis, is that true?
It's true.
Okay. So we have to supply water and sewer to everyone in our CCN, sorry. I don't like CNN. I don't know why I said it, probably got something to go through. Anyway, the problem, this was also going into the 10-year projection for population, so we could impose impact fees to pay for infrastructure. Impose impact fees on developers. Second part was identification of CIP, which means capital improvement projects, faculty expansion for, again, imposing impact fees, because that was one of the things we discussed, is using impact fees to help pay back, which is typically done. Next one. So, since then, if that were to happen, it would be presented to the public, and you would have an advisory committee of 5 people, real estate development, building industries, which is, in essence, our P&Z, so they would be the ones to work with it. And it didn't happen. I don't think they're even involved. I don't know, maybe they do. Water supply treatment, distribution, wastewater collection, treatment facilities, stormwater drainage fund, blah, 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 which would all be encompassed in a master plan. Fees for reimbursement of water or sewer main extended by political subdivision, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, had we, with this development agreement, my plan was for our master plan, and this is important even though it's boring, the city has to have a master plan, and it needs to be up to date. We're getting development, and so this development agreement was my bright idea for our further development agreements. So what we started with, we were going to use the remaining water improvement funds, which we could use on water improvement, not sewer, not streets, nothing else, water. And that's what Mr. Vidalis was talking about that we had, and he's recommended we accept phase 1 because we had it available. So we just need to be sure that we understand what it means by availability, because part of it's going to be in the design, and this has been for pigs going rest. Next one. I get in trouble with the word Old Castroville, and I mean nothing by it except for those of us who know the difference between the issues in Old Castroville, which I discussed about our CIP, River Bluff Electric, Village Electric, streets, Furella, I think, was supposed to be reconstructed or something, I don't know. I can't remember, but I can provide them. All you have to do, anyone has to do, go through past budgets, look at the capital improvement projects. You'll see when they were planned for and when they were to end. You will see how they were funded. They're funded by bonds, loans, or funds. And that has totally been ignored. And that was one of the things that I wanted to look at when I became mayor. So after this, which is, I have no idea where it is because it seems staff is working with them rather than me because of a certain resolution, but I just found that out, because I was kind of angry, but I just found out. So what I was trying to do is connect to Old Castroville, so I was pushing for a TIRZ, T-I-R-Z. Mr. Vidalis, could you explain TIRZ, please?
It's a tax increment reinvestment zone.
And what does it mean?
I'm going to, Clay, do you mind?
Okay.
I mean,
Go ahead.
So that's investment, the reinvestment zone. You take the base, what the property value is at the time that it's not developed. So a TIRZ, you calculate what the value of the property is at the time it's not developed. You have the development occur, and then you take a percentage of the increment, up to 100%, can be used to reimburse for the construction of the infrastructure.
This is very important. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, no.
It's very, very important, and Mr. Binford worked with us drafting letters that one was presented to Commissioner's Court. I didn't actually see the letter. I was kind of neglectful in that point. But we presented it to Commissioner's Court, and they are going to think about it. Tomorrow, we're going to present it, the request that you participate to EMS, and eventually, probably in next week, maybe, we're going to present the request to the Medina County Hospital District. Because it's a win-win for everyone. They're going to get a lot of tax money from this development, a lot. And the problem is they don't have to help us if they don't want to.
So we're going to talk about what the Commissioner's Court approved?
Yes. So Clay could probably explain that, because he was with me when we tried to convince them. And I think they're pretty well convinced, but I don't want to.
Sure. For the benefit of the council, Clay Benford representing the city, we presented the request to the Medina County Commissioners Court to participate in a proposed tax increment reinvestment zone, which means that the county would contribute a portion of their tax collections within the footprint of the Alsatian Oaks. And they passed a resolution of intent to participate in a reinvestment zone with a maximum contribution amount of $12.5 million.
$12.5 million.
$12.5 million. So the money that we talked about when we signed the agreement of the total liability of the city for reimbursing a developer from revenues over time, that money can be used to reduce that city's commitment. So we're asking for the other taxing districts that are also going to benefit from the standards that the city negotiated for this development to be higher than they were otherwise required to also participate in kind. With the total goal of having $17.5 million of participation from these other taxing entities. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I wanted you. I'm just trying to emphasize the importance of that sum of money. So if any of you know ESD people or Medina County Hospital District, please tell them to help. So after that, we did, and one of the things, as I said, my original plan was to make this our master plan, thoroughfare plan. So Russell made it happen, and he got us together. We had 4 people from TxDOT, and I've never seen 4 people from TxDOT together at a meeting ever. So it was fantastic. We had, Mr. Gary had volunteered to be council liaison because he worked on the thoroughfare from that master plan, what was it, 20-something?
2 of them, 2005 and 2012, I believe.
And so we had a very good meeting. Judge was there, so was Commissioner Sitter, because obviously they're interested in our thoroughfare plan because they would like some relief also. So the thoroughfare plan, according to the local government code, would also involve possibilities of working with Highway 90. We got a lot of information. Maybe Paul, would you share, please? Would you like to? Or
yeah, there was a lot of information. One of the things that the county is seeking to do is get participation from Mr. Collins in designing an alternate exit or a second exit from that subdivision and actually allowing some through traffic from Highway 90 to 471 that doesn't have to come through Castroville, come through the light at 90 and 471. The urgency to develop a plan was highly emphasized, and that process is beginning, so.
Very, very, very motivating. We will include Medina Valley also, because obviously their demographics, they know more than we do about what's happening, and they're talking about kids, and if they're able to drive, we're in trouble. So we're talking about the traffic relief as well as the city's threading into or threading out to help. And I've also talked to Danner. He's also interested because it is a bottleneck for people getting to Hondo also. These meetings will continue, correct? That's what I understood, and we will work to a resolution that helps everyone, because that's what this TERS is for, is to help the whole county. It's not just our city, it's our county and development in around us. Everybody says, you know, you've seen what's out there, and we don't want that. Not that I'm saying we're stuck up or anything, but we need money. So it's not being stuck up or anything. Maybe it's sort of, because we want nice things, but we want them to generate revenue, because our city needs it. So after that, and Paul will continue to meet. They're going to be monthly, I believe, as I said. So what we're doing now is awaiting definitive answers on the TERS, and it's yet, Clay and I haven't met with ESD or Medina Valley Hospital District, but we will. So my concerns before I found out what was going on today were to ensure that the city's capital improvement plan is balanced to address the capital improvements for the old city. And again, old city meant Castroville, that has huge problems with the pipes underground because they're asbestos. So if one breaks, what they have to do is put a clamp on it, and that retains strength for that area, which of course ruins the other area. It explodes, then they put another one on that one, and it hits the one farther down. So all we're doing with these asbestos pipes is putting clamps on, and they're going to break. They're going to break, we know that. And that's why this was very important to get this, these pipes fixed before we even would think about the water looping, because I'm not an engineer, but just my twisted logic seems to say that if we were to increase the pressure and the redundancy on the east side, and I don't think it's going to be the east side anymore, but if we were to do that, of course these pipes would even become more susceptible to leaking and exploding and whatever else there is. That was one of the very important things. As far as electric infrastructure for River Bluff and Country Village, Councilwoman Martinez has been an advocate, as I was when I was on council, but it never got done because there was never any money. Now, that's what I'm concerned about. So my vision is that all new development will buy in through the development agreements, and Mr. Denver has finally agreed to help us with that. So it doesn't matter what it is, just we have a development agreement. And my biggest priority right now was to prioritize expenditures in the current budget, which I discussed with Mr. Vidales and Mayor Pro Tem Dyer. They'll have to tell you the results of that. One more thing that I would like to just mention quickly about the TxDOT meeting. One of the things that we really need to do, if you want traffic relief, if citizens want traffic relief, if Medina County wants traffic relief, if anybody wants traffic relief, is we need development agreements that are going to dedicate a certain amount of, what was the fee? Do you remember, Paul? The row that we need development agreements
124.
for expansion of the highway.
What, you mean the width?
The width.
They would like to see 300 to 400 feet for highway.
300 to 400 feet, because then we can work. But if we don't get developers to work with us, if we don't have development agreements, we can't do it. And you guys, we're not gonna be able to do anything. We're gonna have another, I think he said Bandera? Is that, not Bandera? What is the city that has all these little in?
Leon Valley.
They have driveways into the highway.
Leon Valley.
Leon Valley. And he said, we definitely don't want that. That would make everything worse.
Well, I think what they were emphasizing was that unless we have a thoroughfare plan, they don't know where to tell a new developer where they want the right-of-way dedicated. So the plan was essential, so.
It's very, very important. So I will close. There's some new developments, and Mr. Vidalis will take this all over. It is no longer in my hands. I will do what I can to help. That doesn't seem to be my purview anymore. Anyway, this was planned before I found out about that. So it was not in retaliation or anything like that. So previous history, you'll have to talk to Mr. Dyer about Alsatian Oaks because he was involved initially. I think it's called Terraform. Or is it really Terraform and, I don't know, but I'm not sure. Thank you very much. That's it. Now, even though we don't have an organizational chart, Mr. Vidalis will explain the positions that are open.
So the, thank you, Clay. So we have two current job openings that we've had open, one back in March of 2019, and that is the utility worker. That's in the wastewater department. The other opening we have is for an electric line worker, obviously in the electric department, and that's been open since October of last year. I'm sorry, October of this past year. So two positions open, and we did hire the new code compliance officer as well as the administrative assistant over at Public Works. So we will have a new, have to post out for a new meter reader because Carl Brooks will be the code compliance officer for the city. So we'll have that position open soon. So
good for her.
Yes.
All right, so we have all of those. The tech dot was in what I talked about. And Mr. Councilman Carey will be able to give you updates from now on. Now we are having a discussion on establishing another policy. We don't even fix the ones we have, but discussion on establishing a welcome sign policy. Herb Dyer.
The mayor set up a committee last fiscal year to start looking at welcome signs. There's a group of citizens that have met many, many times. They've done a lot of work, but they're at a place now where they can't do much more until the city makes some determinations. We're at a point where the city is going to have to take fiduciary responsibility to own and maintain the signs that we may choose to put out there in the future, and also to own the land that the signs are on. We're driven into this by Texas law, and it's quite a complicated issue, but we think we understand it. It's very clear to us what we have to do, and so in the near term, we'll be working with the city staff on establishing a draft policy that will state that the city will take fiduciary responsibility for ownership, maintenance of the signs on the land, that they will have to build a budget line item appropriate as the finance director sees fit to maintain the signs once they're built. And of course, we have no approved design at this time. We have $25,000 that is not allocated yet for signs. It's simply it's in the budget as a special project amount. It will depend on when the city council gets an opportunity to review the policy and approve it, and when the finance director completes the budget modifications to put the line items in place so that we're prepared to move out. Once that's done, The Citizens Committee will come back and reconvene and bring to the city council and the mayor their recommendations for the type of sign, the size of the sign, potential locations, and all the other things that we have to deal with Texas law. We have a situation now where in the past, the Chamber of Commerce has always been the sole owner of the signs that we've had for many, many years. And they've been taking care of them and maintaining them, and it's become quite a burden because the prices continue to rise. I believe the city is in receipt of a letter from the Chamber of Commerce offering to transfer the ownership of the 2 existing signs to the city and asking the city to consider helping them with some of the expenses that they've incurred this year. It's been especially trying because we've been up against some severe deadlines from the state that we had to move the signs by a date certain, which the Chamber of Commerce did do. They went out and hired people and they did it. And so they're asking us to consider reimbursing them. Some amount is not yet determined, but it's probably going to be in the neighborhood of perhaps $1,600. And eventually the city council will get an opportunity to get briefed and to vote as to whether they want to do that. And they will also have to vote a budget amendment to place the money that would be needed in the appropriate line items to proceed with buying signs if they choose to do it. Again, those decisions have not been taken. So I think it's a good news story. I think we've done a lot of good things. We've made a lot of progress, and I believe if we just work out the remaining questions, that we'll be able to bring a policy to the city council, and hopefully they will approve it and approve the budget amendments, and then we can go on and start looking at final designs and sizes. Just for your information, the general consensus of the committee is these signs need to be on a plot of land that's 10 feet by 25 feet, 250 square feet of land that we'll have to buy or somebody may donate to the city, and we'll build some kind of a sign on there, probably with a limestone base. We've got many very nice designs, and the chamber or the city council has given many comments back to them that they're still considering, and we'll come in eventually with a PowerPoint presentation that'll show those signs, and we'll be able to look and see what we want to do and where we want to do it. So tonight it was just envisioned that we would give an information update, and I'll be happy, and Arnie's here from the Economic Development Council. He's been the principal person that has been doing the negotiations regarding the land upon which the signs have to go. It's a very complicated issue, and he will continue to work with us. So with that, I guess I could just open up for questions.
No, sir, just a second. May I comment?
Certainly.
May I ask?
You asking me?
Yes, sir.
You're the parliamentarian.
I'm allowed to comment?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Councilman Dyer, I'm concerned because we do not know where our city limits are first. Could you tell me what legislation has forced this issue? I wasn't aware. Last thing I heard was the sign was removed because Persigns did not want it there. Not that there was a state legislation, that Persigns had been letting the chamber rent it.
That's correct.
And I wasn't aware it's a legislative
But the issue becomes
request.
the Persigns have revoked their approval for future years. They want us to remove the sign before the end of the year. So we're going to have to find another place. Texas law says if the city owns the sign, it has to be placed on city-owned property. It can't go on anybody else's property except city property.
So this is the new sign that you're planning for the 25,000?
Well, wherever we place the sign, once we move it off of the Persign property, If we own it, then we're going to be under this requirement that we have to own the land upon which the sign will go.
But there is, as far as the legislation that has to be done immediately. That's what I understood. I'm just
Well,
concerned.
our deadline is, I think we have,
March.
we have until the end of December to remove the sign on the east side of town that's on the Persine property. They want it removed, and they want to be paid for this calendar year. So we have to take that sign down before the 31st of December. We don't have any place else to put it.
So we own the sign now?
Not yet. It hasn't been acted on, but it's going to be acted on as we move down the road and we get a policy. We've been given an offer by the chamber to buy those two signs, and we might take them up on it.
The green ones?
It's up to the council to decide
The
whether
green
they want
signs?
to do it. Well, one of them, on the west side of town, I didn't want to get into this level of detail, but on the west side of town, the property owner has continued to say they will let us keep the sign that's there in place with no changes. And that's all right as long as the chamber owns that sign. But if we buy it, then it's a different problem, because then we own the sign. So we have to work those issues out before we can come to you for decisions.
How much would they want for the sign?
I think they're asking us to help with an amount of about $1,600, of which about $800 of that is labor. They've already spent this year to move the signs in order to meet our grandfather requirement. We had to put the sign back up.
But you keep saying we, it's not we, right? It's chamber.
Chamber.
Right.
They had to put the sign back up by, I believe, September 1st, isn't it, Arnie? Yeah. They had to meet that deadline, or they would have lost their grandfathering, and they never would have been able to put the sign back up. So they got it put up, so we're good to the end of the year. So anyway.
All right.
That's
Councilwoman Martinez.
I have nothing.
Councilman Carey?
One of the other expenses that is going to be incurred if the city needs to purchase property, by statute, that is also going to have to be platted, and if so, in so doing, incur expenses at the county if the county is willing to waive that. But right now, the initiation of a subdivision plat application with the county is $2,500. And that's just the application fee. So, you know, you got to factor a lot of things into that decision. Again, if the county chooses to waive that fee, they can, but I wouldn't count on that ahead of time.
Councilman Schirra?
No questions.
Any action, discussion, any more?
not action for any action tonight.
All right, the next one is discussion and possible action on creating an IT department. And again, this is Mr. Dyer, Councilman Dyer.
The mayor came to me and asked if we could take a hard look at all the expenses that we incur each month for the broad range of telecommunications. And we're talking about everything, anything that involves any type of communications, from this camera network that you see right here, to cell phones, to telephones and offices, computers, all the networks that we have in the city, even things like the SCADA system that we use to monitor our wells and lift stations. We have a vast amount of communications throughout the city, and the mayor has asked that we take a hard look to see if we're really optimizing the way we're paying for it. Today, we're outsourcing it to a commercial company in San Antonio, and we buy services from local telecommunications providers like AT&T, Verizon, ComZoom, others. So we have a multitude of things. So the purpose for putting this on the agenda tonight is to discuss the way forward. We have between now and the latter part of this fiscal year, before our current contract with HTS expires. What we would like to accomplish in the near term is working through the city staff. We want to get a clear understanding of where all of our communications commercial assets are and what we're paying for them, so we can determine what the real cost is. It's spread out throughout the whole budget, throughout all the different departments. It's very difficult to get the total picture for how much we're spending on information technology. So I've asked Mr. Vidalis to start thinking about how we can review historical records. We can go through and establish a database, and I've offered to help him, and I'm sure we can get others that will help to do the labor to go around and collect all this information so we can quantify for the city council what we're paying now, and then make an intelligent recommendation about whether we should continue to outsource it or whether we might save a significant amount of money if we hire an IT director and give him a very small staff, perhaps one technical assistant, and we create that position within the city staff and we move all of that back to the city. That would give us better responsiveness, it would quicker service. The persons that were involved would be here, they'd be members of the staff, and I think there's a lot of benefits. The question we don't know is, will it be more efficient, cost-wise? And that's what we've got to answer in this next several months. And so I think it's very important that we search and collect all the existing information and we come back to the city council with a plan and a cost-benefits analysis that shows if we can save money by moving it in-house. If we can, then we probably ought to consider doing that in the next budget. If we can't, then we need to start looking at ways to try to improve the efficiency and lower the cost of the many, many bills that we get every month. I mean, the mayor laid a stack of bills in front of me. I was just flabbergasted. They were all telecommunications bills for 1 month. There's just huge stacks of them. They're everywhere. So we want to get a handle on it. We want to make sure that we're getting the biggest value we can. So I guess my question to the city administrator is, can you help us by initiating a records check and start putting together the database, and let's try to get this done in time to bring it back when we start doing the budget work so it can be in the next budget.
Right, so as far as numbers, in the sense of invoices, I can certainly work with the accounts payable, the accounting staff to get that information. As far as files, I can't do that at this moment.
Excuse me, I'd like to say something. Mr. Vidalis was our finance director before he became city administrator. I don't know when he was hired because I wasn't around, but are involved in his position. And if he is unable to get invoices from the time when he was the finance director, that means we definitely need a separate department. One thing that I managed to do, which I probably won't be able to do anymore, is insist on signing the checks so I can get a feel for what the expenditures are in the city. And I've been doing that for quite a while. And this came up because I signed a check. Are we supposed to put our check ledgers, I'm sorry, Mr. Erkin, are we supposed to put our check registers online?
It's an open record, but it's no requirement to be placed online.
Because your city stopped 2014. And so the finance department should certainly have those invoices. And that was your purview. So you should have the invoices.
Right, as far as invoices, yes, but as far as record keeping,
But there are
as
no
far as
files
I
involved.
don't have those.
You should, I don't know what files you would be expecting to find.
Well, contracts, as an example.
That's Deborah Howe is required to have the contracts.
Don't
What
you
else?
have these? Don't you have all these?
You don't have them, Deborah?
No, I don't have any files in my office.
Why not?
Yes,
No,
ma'am. I have
Leroy, I
Why
asked
don't you
you
have
if you
them?
ask Miss,
Hold on. Here.
Miss,
Sorry.
how?
Why don't you have the files?
I've asked Mayor a couple of times for the files. When I moved into that office, there were no files in there as far as files from past city administration, past staff that was there. All I have is what I brought from the finance department into that office. So right now,
Where
I
did
don't
the files go?
They're in mayor's office.
And I would like to show you photos, if you would like me to, since this has been brought up and obviously discussed prior to this meeting, Mr. Dyer. I have photos of the files that are stuffed in his previous office that I shared with him. I have records of the files that I shared with Mr. Erkin and Mr. Gomez that I took upon myself to find for the East Side Sanitary Lift Station, which I found by going to Public Works and through minutes, which anyone can do. So I feel like there's been some sort of open meetings violation here if we're discussing these.
No, we're
mutual-
discussing
No,
why
sir,
the
it
city
seems
administrator has no files.
like- No, it seems
You
like.
took them all.
No, I didn't.
Yes,
They're
you
in
did.
my
You took them all
office.
out of his office.
They- Mr. Vidales,
Yes,
tell me
ma'am.
exactly which files I took.
There are no files in.
Tell me which
I don't
files
know because you took them. I don't have any files.
What did they look like
There
that
were
you
files-
saw
there
me
were-
take?
there were files that were-
Tell me the color of the files.
Mayor, I can't tell you that. There were,
Tell me the color of the files. You're accusing me
they
of
were in
taking the
the
files.
in the manila file.
What? They weren't.
Well, how do you know then?
Because I gave Deborah the empty file folders because she reuses them. She has a pile of green file folders with numbers on them that I wanted to throw away, and she would not let me.
Because you can't. So let me go back. Files that were previously in the city administration's office, they're no longer in there.
They were
File
upstairs on the second floor, and they are still there.
Before Lee Elliott left, there were
I'm
files.
calling, you're out of order. You are accusing me
I'm not accusing you.
of taking files.
Where are the files?
And you are accusing me and insinuating that those files are gone, so you're unable to do your job.
They are gone from his
This-
office
How do you know?
because they're not in there.
All right. I am going to, as I would like legal advice, I am being accused by this gentleman, that gentleman.
When the city council asked you to move out, when the city,
You're out of order. I am asking,
I have the
I am
floor, Madam
asking
Mayor.
the city
I have the
administrator.
floor.
Councilman
I'm
Dyer,
sorry, but I
I
have the floor.
am in charge. You're out of
You
order.
gave me the
I
floor.
would like our attorney to discuss this, and I invite you and everyone in this entire room to come to my office right this minute.
No.
Right this minute.
Mayor, if I may,
Right this minute, to see the files. And I have been asking you to work with me for the past 6 months, I imagine. I have been telling David to come to me for the past 6 months. I've been telling everyone to come to me for the past 6 months. I have sent, and the kicker here is, Councilman Dyer, that when those files he and I put in boxes when Lee Elliott left, I sent him an Excel spreadsheet, which obviously he didn't even bother looking at.
I did review it.
Well, what did it have?
Mayor, I helped you put the...
Tell me what the Excel spreadsheet says.
Mayor, if I may,
Tell me what it says.
Mayor, I apologize.
I am in front of my citizens. I'm sitting here having to defend myself about files that this gentleman cannot describe, and which I put on an Excel spreadsheet for him to catalog each and every file. And had he bothered looking at that, which was in an email which I can produce, as well as the Excel spreadsheet, this would not have happened. The files that I, listen to me.
You have them in your office. I helped you put them in
Listen
there.
to me. The files that I cataloged on that Excel spreadsheet are the files that were in that office, and they are in a box. Had you read the email?
Where are the hard file copies?
They are in a box.
No.
You can match every one of them. Every single one of them. And, by the way, what's all the stuff you stuck upstairs on the second floor?
What do you mean I stuck? I never
Go
stuck
look.
anything.
Mayor, if I may, we're,
You open this up, Leroy.
Well, just give me my files back and we can be done
You
with this.
open this up.
I simply asked you yesterday in
You
an email,
opened
just a
this
reminder,
up.
I need my files back, and
I asked Deborah which files, and I said, why? Deborah, I asked you which files. And she said, I don't know. And I said, well, I would assume they're files either that he doesn't have, even though he was finance director and human resources, or they're files that you have to keep with record retention. And Deborah said, no, it doesn't matter. Sometimes we keep them. Wait a minute.
No, ma'am.
Stop.
No, ma'am, I didn't
Deborah,
say that.
stop.
I didn't say that.
And so I said, well, Deborah, if that's so, how can you possibly fill out a Freedom of Information Act? I asked her, how can you fill out a Freedom of Information Act if someone asks for records if you don't have them? She didn't answer.
I'm sorry, but I know you asked me about the files, and I sent the city administrator files.
Deborah, may I?
Yes.
Mayor, may I just mention, we're so far from the topic.
Yes, sir, we are. We are. I agree.
I mean, it's just kind of morphed into that. I'm not saying
Yes,
it's
it
anybody's
is.
fault.
I agree with
Well,
you.
my recommendation, this seems to be a very important issue, that you place it on a future agenda, and then you can talk freely about it.
Yes,
But
I agree.
I would recommend going back to the agenda item.
I agree 100%, and I apologize to all of you, because I found out about this when I walked in here, because I had been with my grandson all day, because Mr. Vidalis sent me the directive yesterday to get the files back in his office.
it was a
by this
reminder,
morning.
not a directive.
He just said it.
It was a reminder. I've asked you 3 times already.
We'll put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we have a special meeting on December the 17th with one agenda item to discuss and take appropriate action to have all of the files that were in the city administrator's office returned within 24 hours after that vote is taken, if the vote passes.
I have no authority here. Leroy Vidalis has the authority. I was told just now from Resolution 139, which the council suddenly has decided to enforce without violating any open records or Open Meetings Act, but it seems the entire council suddenly, after the administration of Mayor Hancock, has decided to enforce Resolution 139.
Mayor, there's a motion on the floor.
Second.
I'll second it.
I already did.
I don't have a time yet, so, do you have a time?
6 p.m. on December the 17th.
And
Unless the council members
Mr.
wish to meet
Mr. Urquhart.
earlier,
Yes, ma'am.
could change.
I have all the files in boxes, so is that suitable? Because I will have to sort through them and find the ones on the Excel spreadsheet, and I will put them on his desk. Every one of those files is a copy that's from,
Are there personnel records in those files?
no, they're in his office. I gave him the personnel files. They are stuffed in the shelf in his
Okay,
office.
this, we have,
Upstairs, I found, and he brought this up because he knows.
I call the question.
The personnel files were
I call the
upstairs in a
question.
box
I call the question.
when he was Human Resources. I asked him for job descriptions.
Madam Chairman, your obligation at this point is to call for a
No,
vote.
what, you can ask for an appeal. You can't tell, she's, if I may.
Yes.
She's
Yes,
the
you may.
parliamentarian.
Yes.
And the way Robert's Rules of Order works is that your mayor is your parliamentarian, and she conducts the meeting. If you find something that you personally think that she's doing that's
outside the scope of Robert's Rules of Order, you can ask for an opinion from her. And if her opinion is different than what you believe the rules are, you can ask for an appeal.
Okay.
And then the entire council can decide.
Very good.
On my opinion, may I give it?
Madam Mayor, you are the parliamentarian. You are the person that's conducting this meeting.
Gentlemen, do you mind if I give my opinion?
I would love to hear it.
This is not my opinion, it's law. I called the workshop with Mr. Erkin's firm to verify ordinance. Mr. Martin, would you leave? You're making faces at me.
I'm not looking at you.
Yes, it looks like you're looking at me, and they look like you're being very questionable about the professional. I can have you removed. I would like to explain the issue about the records. When I became mayor, as I said, there was nothing on my desk, there were nothing in the drawers. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing, because if you don't believe me.
Mayor, if I may, I would suggest that there's been, you've brought up the resolution, there's issues about the records. You may want to have a meeting where it's agendized, those items, so the members of the public that may be interested in hearing it, hearing about those issues, would be able to attend.
Excellent.
Because right now, we have an agenda that says one thing, and we're talking about a lot of other things.
Exactly. So I can have a citizens workshop or something and have them involved, as they did elect me to, with their assumptions of my.
Well, you can place on the agenda a discussion about the resolution.
Okay.
And it can be debated amongst you. And, we can give legal advice about the resolution. If there's anything that, we would take our opinion would be confidential. Of course, we would ask to go in executive session. But we can give legal advice that's not necessarily confidential. We can give it in open session.
All right. I would appreciate that. Because do you want to comment, Mr. Martinez?
Yeah.
Anyone?
We have a motion and a second. We need a vote.
All right. So I will put that on the agenda. And would you repeat your motion?
I move that we schedule a special city council meeting for 6 p.m. on December the 17th, next Tuesday, with an agenda item that says, discuss and take appropriate action to direct the mayor to return all of the files that she removed from the city administrator's office, along with any other documents, to return those to the city administrator's office within 24 hours if the vote is approved.
Okay. I cannot do that. I do not want citizens to pay for something so superficial, because every special meeting your councilmen get paid for. I will give you every box I have in my office, files I copied, ordinances I had for when I was council, all the emails I printed out from the previous mayor's PST files, because that is right, including conversations between councilmen and prior mayors. I will give it all to you. You will get more than you want.
Madam Mayor, we have a motion and a second. I think you're obliged to call for a vote.
No, I'll give it to you now. You don't need to vote. I will stay here tonight and provide those records.
Have a motion and a
So the
second.
citizens do not have to pay for a special meeting. I agree to do it right now. I will put every single record I have in Mr. Vidalis's office, because I cannot sort. I do not remember which files that was numbered 16, whatever that meant, was empty. I cannot tell you which files were empty. I cannot tell you which files had papers in them. I will tell you there were copies of meetings. But I will give you everything I have gotten from Hondo, which you need to reimburse me for in that case. And that's a couple of hundreds of dollars because I went and got deeds that weren't here.
Once again, I think what
No, I'm sorry. I will have everything in your office Monday morning, but I cannot promise that I can give you and say this was from file, whatever. What were the files titled? Do you remember?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know, but you helped me move them.
Yeah, we were in there moving files.
But you seem to remember it. I don't remember.
The files that you and I went in there after you started moving files. As soon as Lee left, I went in there.
But,
and said,
okay, so, excuse me, Mr. Habib, Erkin, I'm sorry. I have no idea, and he has no idea. Perhaps Deborah does. Deborah, do you know what files were in there?
I didn't go to the city administrator's office and see the
Okay,
files.
so I will give him every single thing I have. Is that okay?
Well, it's not, I'm not the referee. Here's the situation.
I need the legal response.
Well, the legal response is this, is that you really shouldn't be talking this much about this issue because it's not agendaized. There's been a motion to at least put it on a future agenda, and if you don't recognize that motion, then there should be an appeal to the other members to see if they want to overrule your decision. That's where we're at.
But what I'm saying right now is I will give him every single file to prevent any citizens' funds used to pay for a special meeting for this. I will give everything I have to him.
I understand that, but you're asking me to weigh what the motion is versus what your solution is, and I can't do that.
All right.
That's y'all's job to make those decisions.
I understand now. So I'm telling everyone right now, I will give him every single file I have, and if they pass the motion, your money. All right, go ahead.
I already made the motion
Okay.
twice.
Second.
It's been seconded twice.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I think that's going to cost you what? 100 plus?
It's going to be a 5-minute meeting.
Sorry?
It's not going to be a long meeting.
No, it won't, because he's going to have files tomorrow.
Cancel it.
All right. Now, after that delightful discussion, let's go to discussion and appropriate action on quarterly investment report, which will be Mr. Vidalas.
Yes, for your review is the quarterly investment report for the period ending September 30th, 2019. The ending book value for all 5 accounts is 1.868.
You don't have a handout for us?
No, it's in your packet.
But we don't have a, so everybody can see our finances.
These are just the investments over, they're money market accounts that are part of the Texas Development Board. So our ending balance for the month ending September 30th is 1.868706.88 million. And I'm asking for your approval on that quarterly investment report.
Councilwoman Martinez, question.
Nope, no questions on that.
Councilman Carey.
No questions?
None here.
No questions.
Great.
I move we accept the report as presented.
Second.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Now, we will go to the, discussion and appropriate action on quarterly financial report.
Yes, again, for your approval, I'm asking for your approval is the quarterly financial report for the period ending September 30th, 2019. And these include the revenues and expenses for all of our accounts. This is the last quarter ending, which was September 30th, so our new fiscal year started October 1st. For general fund, we ended at a little over 101% in revenue, which is a good thing. That means we met revenue on the budget side. And expense-wise, we were at almost 80%, so that's a good thing. On the utility side, we collected about 95, almost 96% of revenue, and we spent a little over 85%, almost 86% of that. And then for airport, we collected close to 92% and spent a little over 65%. So we did fairly well on these accounts. So I just want to congratulate you guys on the job well done, as well as the staff. So I'm asking for your approval on this quarterly financial report.
I move that we approve the quarterly financial report.
Second?
I second it.
All in favor?
I have a couple of corrections.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Doing math, my
Go for
thing.
it. Go for it.
On page 2, underneath expenditures for utility administration. Under the utility fund revenue expense report.
Yes, ma'am.
Page 2, 1 of 2, I mean. You have, under utility administration, it should read $774,559. You got 58. You're off by $1. And then same underneath sewer, you're off by $1. It should be $1,424,743.
Okay. We'll get that corrected.
Any more? All right, motion? Do we need to repeat it? Did she ask a
Did you make
question?
it?
No, I didn't.
Paul, did you make it?
Well,
I made the
I'm just
motion.
asking, did she
Paul made a
question?
motion and you second.
I seconded it.
So that question doesn't matter?
No.
I'm asking Ms. Powell.
Corrected.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
All right. Now, we are going into executive session, which I asked for because, as you know, we have new people and they have not been evaluated. So I asked that the city secretary and the city administrator, because it was a condition of his salary increase to 100 and what, 10? I can't remember. So that's why this is on there. However, after discussing with Mr. Vidalis, we weren't going to evaluate Ms. Howe because it would take too much time. And Chief Jackson is new, so you're free. So pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, entitled Consultation with Attorney, City Council shall convene an executive session to consult with the city attorney regarding pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offer, or a matter in which the city attorney, under the state bar's rules of conduct, is required to disclose confidentiality to city council as follows. The first one is the failure of the occupant of the home at 2211 Geneva Street to complete the work necessary to obtain a permanent certificate of occupancy for the dwelling, and he was supposed to have that done by Monday and he didn't do it. Number 2, pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Section 551.074, entitled Personnel Matters, to deliberate the appointment, employment, and performance and duties of the interim city administrator, pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Section 551.074, entitled Personnel Matters, to deliberate the appointment, employment, performance, and duties of the city secretary. So we will adjourn to return after the executive session. We are adjourning. I'd like to say that I have to leave. I'm not going to be here, so we will let Pro Tem Dyer, he will take over from here. So I'll let the record show I'm leaving at
7:39.
7:39. Okay? All right.
The live stream is still on? The audio for this part is not, the live stream is still out.
It's, you know, it's all open now at this point. I don't, we have an audience. Well, you'll be in the paper anyway, so what's the difference? When I took office, I had no information whatsoever. Mayor Kelly left a bag of kind of like caramel M&Ms. And the emergency policy, because I'm supposed to be in charge of that, on a flash drive and the radio. Councilman Dyer had been working on the development agreement, and I had no idea, I didn't know that, and I had no information whatsoever on it to go forward. So this was prior to Mr., I don't know what Leroy was finance, because I know Kelly. Lee Elliott hired him as finance, yes. So he was the finance person when I took office, and I needed continuity, so I gathered every single thing I could. And I couldn't look at Deborah's files because she had them locked up upstairs due to the record retention, blah, blah, whatever. So I talked to Councilwoman McVeigh and a prior councilman and 2 mayors who I asked for information, and they said that those records were upstairs. And I said, no, Deborah filed them, and they said, no, she didn't. They're in boxes up there because we put them up there because there was a flood or something, and the maps. So I went upstairs and I found a total mess and cleaned it up. Deborah was very angry, by the way, and that was when the issue with me being against everything Alsatian started. And I started to clean up upstairs and found unopened, they were open but spilled boxes with files from, I don't remember his name, Roth, who was, I don't remember, he was a city administrator, Roth? I'll have to look it up. Anyway, there was a box of his things that had candy, Kleenex. They just threw it all in a box, including the files. And I'm very sure this is because of all the constant fighting that's been going on in this government for so many years. So all the boxes, it was his, another one was Hoffman's, another one was Gellis, and another one was Jerry Hinojosa. And everything had just been dumped into those boxes. So I got them and started trying to recreate the history of the city from them because nobody had a clue. And while I was doing that, I realized there were still some things missing, so I asked for the email files of Mayor Lee, or their official records, so there should be all the email files, and they weren't there. And I asked Deborah, and she didn't have them, and she said they never kept them, and blah, blah, blah. So I went, which already was a violation, and I even asked, I sent a letter, and I'll be glad to show it, to Mayor Lee and ask him for his records. And he wrote back that he destroyed them with Deborah Howe. So I asked Deborah Howe about that, and she said it's not true, they blah, 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 but yet here I'm being accused. But I have a letter that said she destroyed files of Mayor Lee, so there were no files for Mayor Lee. And so then I insisted, because I've worked with this before, so I know there's email records, I know there's PST files. So I went to our internet company and I said, by law, Deborah didn't want me to have them, but I said, by law, I'm required, I can have these files. And I asked our attorney and he agreed, yes, you can have the files. So they recovered what they could, and the only things that I was able to get were Mayor Lee and Mayor Kelly. There was nothing from Mayor Gardner. I guess, I don't know why.
Well, they may only, I don't know how that.
Because he was between Lee and,
Yeah.
So maybe they didn't know where to look, but they were not, those files were not retained, and they should have been. And so that's when I mentioned it to Deborah, and she got pretty upset. And so from then on, it's been kind of a... So we had no city administrator. Lee Elliott was the city administrator. So since I was still missing information, I went to Lee and said, could you give me this information? Because it was serious stuff that we were doing. We had the East Side Lift Station lawsuit. We had problems with the wastewater treatment plant, Alsatian Oaks development, streets. It was a mess. And then we had accounting problems between airport revenues and expenditures that were going through the water. They were being paid by the park for the airport, and that's another story I'll be more than happy to talk to you about since they opened this up. So anyway, there were a lot of questionable transfers that weren't fully accounted for, which I asked Mr. Vidalis to take care of. And I also had him come with me to Castroville Bank because there were no check registers, or at least he said he didn't have them, and he was the finance director. So I made him go with me to Castroville Bank to get all the check registers, all the printouts of the financial statements to figure this stuff out. So Leroy went with me to the bank and helped me carry out copies of bank statements from all they had was 2014. I can tell you which ones they were. But as I said, those should have been online because I asked for transparency, and they were supposed to be put online, and they never were.
And how recently was that you went to the bank and got
Oh, that was when he wasn't. He was finance director. Because I was trying to help him figure out these items and where the payments were going. So anyway, we got all those together, and Leroy didn't do anything, so they were laying in his office, and I put them in the closet. Because I, as you know, wanted an office because I didn't have one. So I had no place to put anything, so I put them in the city administrator's files. And the city administrator's office had been left as it had been with Marie Gillis. Nothing had changed since she was there. And when Lee was there, I said, Lee, do you mind if I look? Because, we need the records for these things. He said, no, go right ahead, because he was in that office. And he said, you could go through these boxes. And there were like 6 boxes of stuff that was piled under his desk. And he said, he didn't say anything. He never looked at it. And he was working with council and Mr. Vidalis the entire time on the budget, but he did not, and Mr. Vidalis did not bother to look at them. So I asked him if I could have them. He said, yes, go. So I took those files and began sorting them, and they're in my office. I did not take any files. They're all in my office, sorted, because we needed the information about the East Side Lift Station at that time. And Leroy didn't have anything because he wasn't familiar, and Deborah didn't have anything. Nobody had anything. So I went through all those boxes and found some copied, I don't know what they're called. Invoices? They're not invoices. They were copied what the engineer did. Because
you mean like reports? Or?
Yes, because I think they actually had, and he doesn't even know this because those weren't the files he's obviously talking about, but I found that they requested, because there were problems back then, I just found out, and they had requested that the engineer or somebody from the city stand there and watch them work and take notes on the hours they came in and they left and all those, and they're still there in a big old pile. So I gave those, the notes the city attorney did not want, so I did give him those. And everything else that I had or could find, and Leroy knew very well that I was looking everywhere for all the files I could find in the Eastside station to give to Deborah. And the attorney can verify that because he has them. Before he was given interim, so what was he then? I don't remember. I never bothered. I've been so busy trying to get this stuff together. I do not remember. Whenever they gave it to council, I don't know when that was, because I was totally against them doing it because we didn't have the records. And Leroy did it anyway, and that was another conflict. But for him to put it on, he had the records. He had all of them, or he wouldn't. I told him he couldn't put it on the agenda, and that's on the agenda. He can't dispute that. So all those files from the East Side lift station that were in those files he's talking about, which were nothing, I gave to Deborah. I found other files upstairs that were not in her record retention. They were in those boxes that were all broken up. And so, again, I collected as much as I could just for the background on that. And after that, Mr. Erkin asked me for the wastewater treatment plant files. There were none. Leroy was finance, but he didn't have anything. He didn't know where to look for them. So again, I went through that, and I found, again, they were lists of what the Freeze and, I think it was Freeze and Nichols, I don't remember. Anyway, list of what Freeze and Nichols had done, and that's all I found there. And then I went upstairs and I actually found more information, but it was all copies because Deborah has to have the originals, and she didn't. In fact, I did find something that was an original that she didn't know about, and I gave it to her to properly file, by the way. I wish I had written the name down, but I was being nice. So anyway, those were collected in a box for Public Works because they needed them because of the problems with the lift station, because none of them had a clue, because John was new, totally. They didn't even know what we were talking about. So anyway, I got all those files together, and they're in a box. So I don't know what's from whatever he's talking about and what I managed to dig up my own. So then, when Elliot suddenly resigned, Leroy was still finance, because he was still finance. So that was when I asked if I could have a file cabinet to put the files in. And he gave me, and I'll show it to you, and I'm just amazed that this is happening. He gave me a metal file cabinet that was rusted from upstairs to put my files in. That was moved down to my office, and I put the files in there, and he was well aware because I asked him for the file cabinet. He gave it to me. He wouldn't buy me one, but he gave it to me. So I used that file cabinet to file the projects, because the dates didn't matter, they just needed the project. So those are all in files according to project. And I had them all in there. And then the airport needed files because there were questions, and you know well as I do, about the youth baseball lease, the water lease, all that stuff. So there were nothing in her files, or in that file, or whoever's file that was, because it wasn't anybody's file, because the room was vacant and had been for quite a while. But again, I found everything upstairs in boxes that had just been thrown. So I have all that stuff together, and it's in my office. Anyone is free to look at it. I asked Deborah if they were public record, and she said yes. So they're all in my office. So everything seemed to be fine because I had the records. They got what they needed. We were moving forward and all that sort of stuff. And when I didn't confront, but when I was very concerned about the spending because I was signing the checks. And I was very concerned because it was way out of hand. And I approached Leroy.
Spending in general, or?
And I approached him before, when I don't remember exactly when, I have the email so I could supply all that, but I said, Leroy, I'm really concerned about this development. We need to have this money, and do you have it? And how could you recommend that money for that phase when you don't even know how much is for design and what it's for, or how much the city has to pay, or any of that? He got very upset with me. And I said, I relied on you, that was your that was, you know, I didn't even sign the development agreement because Mayor Dyer, he signed it because I trusted everybody. I thought it was what I had seen. And so Dyer signed it, huh?
Did you feel like the development agreement is not?
No, it's not what it was. That's why I brought it, that's what I was talking about here. And that's why it's not the development agreement, it was phase one. Because phase one was when I discussed that was supposed to have these three, this was it. And this is what I had negotiated and worked with. And it was going to use the airport well. Because that was going to be our potential future wastewater treatment plant. These people all had that because they had all the materials that we discussed with the developers. So, well, what happened is this is completely thrown out. Somebody, when I got the report, said that the airport well cannot be used, and nobody told me. And so I went to, and Leroy had already approved it and sent it through with the promised money. And I found out about it after because somebody asked me, and I said I didn't do that. That wasn't me. You know, nobody talked to me, and I asked city staff who said this, and nobody would tell me. And so then I went to Respect, and I said, who said this? And they wouldn't tell me. And they said, we'll tell you it wasn't Leroy. And I said, that doesn't help me. I want to know who said it. And they won't tell me. They will not tell me who said to take out this. Nobody told me. And I was very upset with Leroy because, again, he passed and recommended that money that we don't have. And so I told him, I said, it's on you. This is your development. This is your money. If we go broke, it's on you because I'm not going to go through another Walmart fiasco. And then he said, well, we have to raise utilities. And I said, absolutely not, because you were supposed to clean everything up first before any of this happened. And I was upset, I'll admit. I wasn't ugly, but he was arguing with me, and I tried to get him to understand how concerned I was about the budget, the spending, because we didn't have anything set aside for the capital improvement plans because they didn't know how to do one. And I even gave him the information on how to do them, and he ignored it once he became, because I was helping him because he worked for a school, and I was helping that gentleman, helping him, supporting him. And so after that day, it became, you passed the budget, you made the budget, it's your responsibility, council's responsibility, blah, 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 and kept defending himself for the expenditures. And I said, Leroy, Devin, who is the parks director, went and bought, I think he bought 5, I don't even know, he didn't even tell me, Apple, Curve, screens, 2 for everybody. And they were 600 and plus each. And no one, that was absolutely an unessential, it wasn't essential. And so I asked him about that, he got angry. And then I asked him about several programs that were bought, software that we did not need because we couldn't even use the software we had. And he got very angry. I asked that the web page be fixed. He got very angry. And after that, this is when this file stuff came up, because he said he did not know because he didn't have his files. And
How recently was
just now. This happened when I got the Phase 1 report.
So was that?
Yeah, because I sent them all a letter. No. I sent them an email. It's right here. I brought it. My first one was prior to November. This is November 6th, November 5th, November 4th.
Is that when the issue of where the files were first came up?
No.
When did that first come up?
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
I got an email from him that said, Deborah first said I was taking files. She said that last week for some reason. I don't know
Said
why.
that to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I said, no, I'm not. The files are there. They're copies. They're not files. They're not original files. And I said, your record retention, you told me, we talked about it. You destroy files after, I don't know what she told me. Because I asked for back files. She didn't have them. She said they're destroyed. And I said, that's ridiculous. We need to look over this retention schedule. And she got upset. And then that's when all this broke open.
What happened yesterday?
Yesterday, I was in the office, and Leroy didn't show up for some reason, because he was bad. And he was working on the financial report. He didn't tell me. I don't even know who signs his time card. I assumed I would, but I don't. So he didn't have the financial report ready Friday, so I just assumed it was because he was home finishing it up. I don't know. You'll have to ask him. Because
So he didn't come to work Friday?
he didn't come to work Monday.
Okay.
And so I was at work all day trying to get this PowerPoint together. And all of a sudden, I got a mail. I don't remember. I was so shocked. I can't remember. It was something he sent me about the files. No, it wasn't. Something he sent me.
Like an email?
Yeah, I've got all the emails. You can certainly have them. I can't remember. Oh, why are you evaluating me and Deborah and the chief? And I said, because it was on the agenda, I asked that they be evaluated. And I said, Leroy, you're being evaluated because that was one of the conditions of the raise you asked for. And he said, oh, okay. And he said, I don't have any evaluation forms, but I'll give you this one. And he said, why are you evaluating Deborah? And I said, Lee Elliott said that was supposed to be done already. It was not done. And I had it on the agenda last month, and they took it off. Leroy took it off. So this time I insisted it be on, and he didn't want it on. So that was Friday and yesterday, and then right when I was leaving, I got this email from him at, oh, I know when it happened. You're not going to understand this all, but there's constant utility issues. You're well aware of that. So the youth baseball, they hate. So anything about them is wrong. So I became aware of, the city said there was a leak at the ball fields. And they told me that it was an irrigation covered work. And so I called Jason, because I know Jason Gibbert, and I said, you need to sit here while I know better, it's a conference call, I want you to listen. So I said, I just said, Jason, hey, I hear, you have an overage. And he said, yeah, it was the meter and they fixed it. And I said, that's not what I was just told. I was told that it's a leak in the irrigation system. And he said, no, that was turned off in August and blah, blah, blah. And so they did, in fact, change the meter, but no one has told me what happened. I don't know.
I want to give you this, maybe.
I have it.
You have that?
Yes, sir, I do. In fact, I wanted a parliamentarian. I asked that, I had someone who agreed to come for free, and Ms. Howe doesn't,
Anything I did to make this more contentious, but.
Ms. Howe doesn't,
You are the presiding officer, so you.
you saw, this is what I've been battling for ever since it came up. That's why I had that workshop. This is, I have been battling this every meeting we have. So I would like, that's why I wanted a resolution with that workshop. And everything we discussed at the workshop was blown out of the water because Deborah said that Resolution 139 was valid, and that's when Dyer said my powers were ceremonial, and this all started.
Yeah, and so
It's contentious because...
It's very contentious, but I want to say that it's a little more nuanced than your ceremonial. You know, there's some things that you have authority over, like you are the custodian of the peace. Like if there was a catastrophe...
They will not let me.
No, I'm telling you.
They gave, Leroy has the emergency files. He has the emergency management plan. He has the radio. I have nothing.
Well,
I'm not even called when there's an emergency. They call him and he lives in wherever he lives, and then he calls me.
Well, I just didn't want there to be a misconception because the resolution...
Well, that's what I've been fighting and fighting.
Resolution, but that the resolution isn't the end all.
Well, that's what it came back and reared its ugly head when I talked to you, because that's been the whole issue the entire time, and to me it's violation of Open Meetings Act that a council who has never, ever enforced that or even brought it up en masse suddenly is enforcing that without telling anybody.
I will say this.
They didn't tell me.
I will say this, under council, with Mayor Kelly's...
Oh, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. This is...
Okay, I'm not going to say anything. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
I apologize.
Sorry.
No.
You were just sitting there.
It'll come out. It's something we need to resolve.
Yeah, if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, we definitely do. Thank you. I forgot where I was.
Okay, so back to yesterday.
Yes, I got an email from Leroy
Why are
suddenly.
you evaluating?
That was Friday.
Oh, okay, that was Friday.
And
And yesterday you got an email saying...
At the end of the day, I have it. I can show it to you. It's in my office because I was shocked. It said, reminder. I don't know why I would get a reminder. I didn't even know I was supposed to have them back at a certain time. Reminder, I would like the files all back in my office tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And so I asked Deborah, what files is he talking about? I don't know what he wants. And Deborah could not tell me. And I could do nothing because I didn't have a clue. I have so much stuff over there. If you look at it, there is impossible that it would have ever fit into that file cabinet. And he got rid of the file cabinet, by the way. He gave it to me. He gave it to me.
Well,
So,
did anything happen today?
well, what he was saying is I took the files, and that's why he was overspending, and he didn't know how to, he didn't know how to budget for the development agreement. Those files were missing, so that's why he recommended, he said that the $800,000 was available, which it wasn't. And he said I had the files, so he didn't know, which is totally untrue because all of this happened well after Marie Gillis. She wasn't even near any of this stuff, so she had nothing to do with it, so none of those files were there. And I said, Leroy, it's in the development agreement, did you read it? And they said, no, I didn't. And I said, well, this involves everything. And I asked him if he had, he said he didn't care about the airport, he didn't care about, I don't remember what else he told me. And I was just very, very upset and said, you know, it's all encompassing in here, it's our entire city, and you don't even know how much money we have, and you're making 800 and something free, available, and it isn't. And that's when this all started.
Okay, so then what happened today when, because he had sent you,
Oh, when I got, he sent me that mail,
right, that was.
and so I could not, that was Monday? Yeah, I could not get anything together. I didn't know what files, I had no clue.
Why couldn't you just take everything? Or tell him, come in here and take everything?
Do you realize what I have in there?
No, but why couldn't you? Even
Well,
if it was.
he said the files. So I kept asking Deborah which files, because he will never, if he goes through that stuff I have in there, it will take him a year, because he doesn't have the background to know what is connected to what. We've got a youth baseball that's in the parks folder, which shouldn't be. It should be with the airport. And so he can, I have always told him he could come in. I gave him the Excel spreadsheet because I've been helping him so he knows what he is doing. I supported that man. He's got the job because of me. Because I said I would help him, and he said, I'll learn, and blah, 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 blah. So it wasn't scolding, but as I said tonight, now that it's clear, because it's clear now, I will just give him everything and he can go through it. I have no problem. I told him. You heard me with the arguments. I said, come with me now, take them. And they won't, because you're well aware that council, no one supports me. So this has been a good thing, because now it means that, as he said, I'm going to share this all with the citizens, and we'll get the citizens' response. Because as it says, they do what the citizens want. So myself, if the citizens want Leroy to be in charge of everything, that's fine. That doesn't bother me a bit if that's what the citizens want. But
Tomorrow morning,
yes,
when the paper comes out, Facebook messages go out, and people learn about this meeting next Tuesday, what do you think will be the public reaction?
I don't even know if I can be here. Nobody asked me if I could even be here. I don't know. I haven't looked at my schedule. I might be, I don't know. That was way out of my hands. I was surprised that it even went through. So I can't tell them. They're going to have to talk to Leroy or Councilman Meyer. I have no clue. Because believe me, those boxes are going to all be in his room tomorrow. Well, it's not even his room, the city administrator's room. And it's everything, because I cannot, as I said, separate the files from what I've gathered, even from the courthouse. I can't, because I had to get deeds because they weren't there.
What part of this to you constituted a possible violation of
The sudden, this was sudden. I wrote him a letter last night, the attorney, and I said, I need legal recourse because I cannot do this. I don't know what files, I don't know what he's talking about, blah, blah, blah. And so I couldn't get here today to get his answer in the city mail. And so I hadn't talked to him, but I was, I just assumed he would say, well, that's fine, just give him what you can, because there's nothing I can do. I mean, I can't do anything but give him all the files.
Right.
So, I did not, I've always offered it to everyone. My door is unlocked. I have always had those open to everybody. I bring them to meetings. You've seen me. I bring them with me here. I bring them. And I copy them myself. And I bring them because that's the type of person I am. Everything I do has to be backed by something. And they're well aware. I've always told them.
So why did he think he couldn't have it?
Good question. That is an excellent question. Excellent. But I don't dare say anything at this point, because anything I say will be construed as, I don't know what. I had an email from Councilman Martinez who said, I demand that you resend a Facebook post because you said something, and I can give it to you. I guess it's open record. And Leroy gave it to me and told me, Leroy. So I sent her an apology for whatever I did. Councilman Carey sent me an email and warned me that he would not tell me again that, I can't remember what that one's about. I'll give it to you. I've just taken them, they're just like, Dyer has written me like, I guess around 4, admonishing me for my behavior at council, admonishing me for asking Deborah to not talk during a meeting because she's not supposed to. And I have them. I can give them to you. I have not been able to control anything, and I have not brought it forward because I was trying to get this straight. But when that second I went up there to talk to Habib, it was about, well, what do you want me to do about the records? And he didn't know what I was talking about. He said, resolution, I don't know how that even came up. And I said, I was told a resolution can't be enforced, it has to be an ordinance. It's not an ordinance, and we asked council to update policy 2 months ago. 2 months ago. And they never did it. So when I was sitting there, I said, he said, council has never enforced it, but they decided to enforce it now. And I said, I was not told that until this very minute that you're telling me. And so I said, I happen to have this for the development agreement, and I said, local government code says, despite ordinances, resolutions, it doesn't matter, everything reverts to local government code. Yeah, because I do, everything I do, I make sure it's correct. I don't do anything, I'm just not that way. But he looked at it and he went, he told me, he said, yes, and that's what they're doing. And I said, no, it's not. They won't let me do anything. And he said, they have to. As you said, he came up to you because he saw what's been going on all this time. And you heard him. You interpreted it the way you wish, but it has to be discussed. And he, too, mentioned the parliamentarian, which I brought up, and Deborah didn't want it. And it's Ella Carlson. She's a registered parliamentarian. She's been offering. And I said, Deborah, you're not doing it. And she said, I'm not a bouncer. She told me that today. No, she told me that yesterday. I can't get this stuff together, but it's been constant bashing, and that's why I was very frustrated with the newspaper, because I was just, everywhere I turned, I was bashed. The only people I had supporting me were the citizens, and they supported me. I mean, I got crap from them too, like you expect. I mean, that's life. But it wasn't deliberate. I don't know. To me, it's been a deliberate consensus by this council to undermine me. And it just, especially with this ordinance, which had been resolved and suddenly reared its head. So obviously, they have been talking together without telling anybody that they're enforcing the ordinance, which to me is an open meetings. And they are so intent on using that to curtail anything that I can do that even Habib was shocked. So
what, and I realize it would just be a guess.
But I didn't finish the thing about the ballpark.
Oh, yes.
So that came up this morning, yesterday morning, and what I was told, the Parks pays the enterprise fund, which is our utility fund, for the baseball lease, land lease, which is $8,000 a year. And Parks pays their water bill. I don't know if they pay their electric bill, because I was shocked already by that piece. And the overage wasn't in the Parks budget, so they couldn't pay it. So that's why they were upset, saying there's a leak. And he said there's not, there is. And so it was this big discussion, and that's what I called Jason. We got it straight. Public Works said the meter was fixed. I said when? and Devin just left. And so I called Leroy and I said, Leroy, you know, I've been told allegedly that the airport is not, what we had all understood. The airport hates baseball, and so I was trying to move them to another field, get them away from the airport, so we'd have all that taken care of. And I'll be more than happy to go into that one too. So that also upset some older people, like Mr. Dyer and stuff. So it must have been God showed that the airport does not directly show the ballpark as revenue. The airport, it's a lie. 8,000 is what I was told today a year, but they don't pay it. The city pays it through the park, and so the park pays the utility fund for the ballpark land lease, which is $8,000 a year, and pays the utility fund for the water usage, which is 12 acre feet a year, and I didn't figure out the total what that would be. And so it's been in their budget, nobody did it. It wasn't in the budget when we discussed this, and so I wrote him an email and I said, Leroy, this has to be fixed because, and so anyway, so that all goes into the enterprise fund, and then the enterprise fund does a transfer, which has no annotations or whatsoever, to the airport for the money that the parks pays for the lease and the money that our parks pay for the water. And so then that, through the enterprise fund, is sent to the airport. So the airport's in whatever we're subsidizing. That's not the word. I don't want to say that. It doesn't matter. It should have been clearly accounted for. And so I wrote an email to him yesterday when I found it out, and I said, Leroy, this should have been taken care of when we talked about the check registers and all that sort of stuff. That's why we got them. And now I found out it's the parks. I didn't know it was the parks. I thought it was, I don't know what I thought. You know, I could have understood funneling money, but not to the parks. And it doesn't matter. It just wasn't done properly. You know, and if that's the way it needs to be done and it's legal, I have no problem with that. So he got real upset about that, and I said, you know, do it at your earliest convenience. This needs to be fixed. And he sent me an email back, and he said, I don't know what he said, I can on my phone, but I'll get to it as soon as I can, or something like that. And he's very upset about that too. So all these things just came up now. And I will add the checks. There are several violations that we had that he didn't tell me about. Deborah had been opening my mail, because I get mail from Texas Railroad Commission and Texas TC, Texas Water Commission, whatever it's called, and they're addressed to me, Honorable Mayor Santlivan. And Deborah regularly, she's been opening them, and then she gives me a copy. And so I said, Deborah, why am I getting a copy of my personal registered mail? I should be opening it. And she said, I've always done that. And so I thought, okay, I guess that's the policy. So I went to the postmaster and I said, is this, legit? And he said, absolutely not. But if your city says that's what you do, that's what you do. And I said, Deborah said, where's the policy? And she couldn't come up with it. And she got very upset about that because I asked for the originals of all these violations that I've been getting. And I guess she'd been giving them to Leroy. I don't know. So we had a violation of $1,000 that I wrote a check for, and nobody told me about it or told me why. We had violations on the airport well that I only found out about because I was at the well that happened to be there. And so all these things were happening. I said, Leroy, you need to tell us. We need to know these things are happening. Council needs to know. He got upset. So it's a whole slew of things that I've been trying to get straight. I thought he was getting straight, and he hasn't been getting straight. And it seems as if city staff has been working as well as, I guess, Councilman Dyer, obviously. He's the one that's really upset on changing everything without, I mean, this is a legal document. It says the airport well, just stuck in there, the airport well was not considered because it is leased. No, it's under contract, that's what it says. I'm not, it's not under any contract whatsoever. You can't contract a well, you can't lease a well, you don't lease a well. If the well is leased, that means that the airport has leased it to the city, because it just brought up a huge amount of stuff that, I'm not saying that it was malfeasance, I'm saying they don't know, because they're not. John, he is excellent, but I never even get to discuss anything with John. It never comes up to me. But if you were to talk, maybe you should talk to Leroy to verify what I'm saying, because it's not in retaliation of anyone. It's just that my goals are to make sure we don't have another fiasco like we did with Walmart or any other things. You wouldn't believe the stuff that's going on here that's been screwed up. Wastewater treatment plant, east side lift station, the streets, the electric, everything is so bad, and I'm trying to fix it, and I'm not getting any support, maybe because they were part of the council back then when these things happened, because their names are on a lot of the things too. So, I don't know how. What I'm saying is the truth, and I'll be more than happy to, I think, maybe you should talk to Councilman Dyer and them about the sudden enforcement of this resolution that can't be enforced.
Well, definitely. I'm not sure if it'll be me or be Allison. Well, we will be talking to Councilman Dyer. We're talking to Leroy about this. The way we usually do things is a dispute. We want to talk to the different people involved. Did the discussion on the files have any, did it have any effect on your decision to attend executive session?
No, the resolution he told me that they're enforcing. I have no power. I can't do anything. My evaluation means nothing. And I'm the one, seriously, that should be evaluating. But I can't with that resolution. I have nothing until it's, it's straight as to what I can do. I can't. What can I do? They're going to, at the end, if I continue, it's going to be, I'm going to be shot down no matter what I say. Even if I say, I signed checks for $16,000 for IT and groveled to him to help me. And now everything, he admitted it. It's right, because he wouldn't even look at it when I first gave it to him, and he said, "This is in the budget." And I said, "No, it's not. Please look." And then he wouldn't look. I took him away and I said, "Listen, you've got to stop this. This isn't helping anybody. I have no agenda. I just want to help the citizens get the city straight." And so then finally he relented. He looked at him and he said, "I can't believe this." And IT, this whole bit he brought up on his own. And it was because he saw the incredible amount of money that he's been approving for disjointed pieces of software, routers, those screens, all non-essentials that are taken out of the general fund. And he saw it, and so he's acting on it yet. He didn't have a question about the budget. And this is obviously his big spiel. That's why he did it, because Leroy didn't want me to put this on the agenda. And I said, I'm tired of fighting. So it's everything I have said is true. I can prove it. So I don't know, where it'll go from there. I give up. I tried to help these people and cover up mistakes because they were learning. No, not these people. It's Deborah's always been against me from the very beginning. Leroy. She got real upset when I said she destroyed records, and I said, I've got the email from him, because that's against the law. And I said, well, I've got the email that said you destroyed records, Deborah. And that's when all this kind of started. She was worried because I wasn't aware. I was researching the old minutes, and I went all the way back to 1947 for the airport. And I was reading the book. I had it in my office, and I was reading it. I had no clue I couldn't take it out. No clue whatsoever. I took it home. And she was so upset. And I said, Deborah, I had no idea. Because I was locked in my office, but I didn't get to finish, and it's an intensive reading because it's all written and stuff like that. I had no clue. I did not know. She gave me the book. I had no clue, and I would have never taken it home had I known I couldn't take it home. But it's just a lot of things have opened up after this, and the best way to get rid of them is to get rid of me, or I guess keep me struggling. It's just a struggle, and they want me to resign. In fact, he said it, Byers said it right during the meeting. He said, are you ready? Are you going to quit now? Is that a promise? Are you going to quit? Because I said, there's no support. You just, I can't do anything. You won't support me. He said, so you will, he said, will you quit now? Myers, sitting right here. It's in the mic. So he did it during the stream meeting. And I said, no, I'm not going to quit now. So I know it's a deliberate, but they're trying to get me to quit. And I haven't. Because I went to the citizens. And then again, after this meeting with the citizens, as I said, they decide that the mayor is ceremonial. That's what they get, and they can have him. And then that way he'll shut up because he's ceremonial. And I bet you $100 he's not gonna, they're not gonna enforce the resolution that he wants. Another one. So to me, it's open meetings. It really is an open meetings violation. They are enforcing something and so aware of it when they won't even, they hadn't even looked at council policy, which is required by law. And it's supposed to be updated. I'm not lying, I promise. I don't have an agenda, and I welcome all debate. I mean, honestly, I'll sit here with him and Deborah and you if you wish. But definitely when we have the citizens forum, or whatever it'll be called, it's going to be, they will tell, you know, it'll be out there. And then the citizens can decide, and quite frankly, they could rescind if it were even an ordinance, which it isn't, but they can ask that it be rescinded. So, you know, it's just got to stop. It's just got to stop. That's all I'm saying, and I want it to stop. I don't enjoy this. And, you know, I'm trying to do the best I can with the constant humiliation and yelling and everything else everybody sees on streaming. And I'm sticking it out for the citizens, but it's hard. And he had no clue. He had no clue. You're welcome.
I came over because I saw what was going on in the streaming. I was the office streaming, and I also is brand new, and I thought it was important to have some impressions that was, you know, because I have a little more.
Yeah. Well, definitely I've got to leave, as I said, so you know, definitely. Thank you. I kind of got behind here.
Let's not pay the heat bill in here.
Hey, I was at Colder Places. I know the chief of OSI. I'll give you the number.
Okay, we're
Yep, on. What?
gotta wait for the recorder to be turned
Yeah, our
on.
neighbor across the street, the Flanagan's, that has that big dog. Yeah, that's the chief.
We're reconvening in open session at 8:35. Item number 17. Consider possible action or give direction on captioned items legally discussed in executive session. First one, item A.
1A.
The issue is the failure of the occupant of the home of 2211 Geneva Street to complete the work necessary to obtain a permanent certificate of occupancy for the dwelling. Is there any motion the council wishes to make?
Yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I would like to make a motion to move to designate the city attorney's office as special prosecutor and pursue remedies under the Code of Ordinance to achieve compliance with code requirements regarding the residents to 2211 Geneva Street.
There's a second.
I second.
Is there any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. It's 4 ayes, 0 nays. The motion passes. With regard to item 2 and item 3 in executive session, there's no action taken in the public forum. Okay. Moving on to item number 18. Reports from council board liaisons on monthly city boards and commission meetings. Ms. Martinez.
We have not met for planning and zoning.
Mr. Carey.
The Zoning Board of Adjustments has not met, and I reported on the meeting with TxDOT and other official or representatives from other agencies about transportation, and I'll continue to do so.
Okay. Mr. Shearer.
Parks and Recs met. I was absent for the meeting, but I talked to Darren Schroeder, and he said they're still working on the heating of the pool. It's probably not going to happen until January, but it's in the works. So.
Okay.
We still have not gotten a signed copy back of that.
Oh, really?
Agreement. No, sir.
Maybe that's why we haven't
Maybe we need
started
to get
yet.
the city attorney to send them a letter.
We sent it over to him, I believe. Devin has been in contact with someone, and Darren. And I'm waiting for the signed copy.
Okay.
Okay, the Library Advisory Board is scheduled to meet tomorrow night at 6:30. So I'll be able to tell you next week, or next meeting,
And hopefully
what
you'll
they
have
did.
a quorum.
And the Historical Landmark Commission has not met during this period, so I have nothing to report. Okay, moving on to item number 19. Discussion of future agenda items. Mr. Shearhart.
None at this time.
Mr. Carey.
I'd fain to put anything else on our agenda right now.
Ms. Martinez.
We're good. I'll have some at the beginning of the year, after the holidays.
I have none. Moving on to item number 20. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned at
8:37.
8:37.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all for your persistence. I'm sorry the meeting took so long.